years friends with my mommy friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and our kids are not wanting they're not wanting for friends.
Yeah.
All those other parents are, helping each other.
Yes.
Doing so much.
In the village.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. That village is really important. And here's the mayor of the village here, Grandma. Mayor of our kids' village. You're there for our granddaughter all the time. So.
But that's kind of a life of there.
Yeah, but still, you're there all the time.
She's right up there.
She is. She's 21 months now.
Oh, yeah.
I'm Sandy. Yeah, he's younger.
Oh, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, that's just maybe.
Okay. Well, while we're waiting for that to warm up, we'll get started.
No, I live near Monterey. Yeah. Well, yeah. There's a radio down there. She flew me up on her air miles, so how do you say no?
Why would you say no?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them or what? Although I was telling my mother-in-law, I saw her yesterday, and I said, I don't have any other issues anymore. I was talking, I realized, I don't live in Ray. Why am I going in March? I actually tomorrow morning, but I've been here since last Monday. We did, yeah.
Because the next week, with my phone, I slept through the night.
Oh, okay, good. It's always about 65 where I live, so.
Now, this worked out perfectly. I creamed this rose garden yesterday, and when I went out there to do it, the sun was shining.
Oh, nice. Yeah, yesterday.
It's supposed to rain at 2 o'clock. It said so. I just finished that, got in my car, and the first rain.
Oh.
Yeah, 'cause we just stepped up to take a walk.
We did bring our umbrellas, and by the time we got home, we were really glad.
All right.
Okay, no more hilarity.
No more hilarity, no more chit chat, no more fun. Down to brass tacks. Okay. So this is part 2 of who are our neighbors, and I'm doing something crazy today, which I'm live streaming and projecting, and sharing the projection on the live stream, which may or may not be working. All right, I got audio. That's all I'm really concerned about. So catch up. Last week we talked about the history of Milwaukee, and it was fantastic because we had a couple of people here that knew more about the history of Milwaukee than I know, and about the town that I grew up in. So that was a fantastic resource they have. And so the things that we talked about how the population changed over time. One of the things that I found remarkable, which you can see right here, as I love this graph, right, is the population explosion of Milwaukee. But this kind of puts it in perspective, right? Is that here?
You can read the year.
Yeah, I'll read it out to you. So that's 1940, okay, and 1980, okay. So you can see, right? When was Milwaukee Lutheran Church founded? Right here.
Yeah.
Right? When did we build the sanctuary? Right about here. Or build the church. So you can see why we were who we were, right? That's when you build the church. Right before the local population is about to explode with Midwestern transplants. If you know of any places that's about to happen, let me know. I've got an investment opportunity for you. So so we talked about the population changes. We talked about how the demographics have been changing over time. We talked about what that means for us as a church, because realistically, the identity of who we are as a congregation historically was formed during this. And now we're here, and actually that was only 2020. So actually, since the 2020 census, the population has started to drop in Milwaukee a little bit. So this is where we're at now. This is the church we are now, but this is where our identity was formed, right? This is where our practices were formed. This is where all the stories that we hear all the time about how we used to have a Sunday school of 130 kids and 18 pastors, and I'm being hyperbolic here. It's during this, right? And so we kind of need to figure out how to be the church of this. And one of the things that we need to, we don't need to remember it, we're experiencing it right now, is that if you were to overlay, Milwaukee Lutheran membership statistics, it would have been followed like this. It would have hit here, and then it would have been doing this. Right? So one of the problems that we're facing right now is that there are no new Lutherans moving to Milwaukee. Right? There are very few new Lutherans being born. And so the question, although we've had a boom, we've had a bunch of COVID babies at Milwaukee Lutheran, so, and we've got all the parents on our church council. Not all of them. Yeah, Dylan, I'm holding out hope that one day he or Kaya will step into the, no, Dylan would never do it. He's not that stupid. No, he would never do that. Anyways, that's the challenge that confronts us. And so the question that we are asking, going forward is, what does the church of 2022, what does the Milwaukee Lutheran of 2022 look like? What does it need to look like? And not just for our own well-being as an institution, but like what's our responsibility to our community? Because during this time, a good majority of the people that lived here went here, right? And if they didn't go here, they went to Milwaukee Pres, or they went to St. John Episcopal, or they went to St. John Baptist, right? So everybody, for the most part, was in a church. Now I don't think I need to show you a graph of religious affiliation demographics with regards to Portland, but it's pretty low. So if Milwaukee is at all representative of the amount of religious participation that makes up Multnomah and the Tri-County area, we're looking at around 20%. And lower than that are actually practicing on a regular basis. So who do we need to be? So that's a question that I like to have hanging over our heads, for lack of a better way to put it. So what we're going to do today is we're also going to look at, what's Milwaukee look like right now, right? So who is here? Who is in this space? So scroll down, and this is the way that this information is presented is not extremely helpful, but it is what it is. So what are the demographics? And here's why it's not helpful, is because this 3 tabs make it confusing as heck. So it shows total, and then you click on a tab, and then it shows Hispanic, and Hispanic is divvied up over white, 2 or more white races, and some other race, or all. I don't know why the information is presented in this manner, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So let's talk about who makes up Milwaukee in 2020. Okay. So this information is all from the 2020 census. Okay. You probably can't read this, but this right here should probably tell you what you need to know. So we're still pretty white, especially relative to, like, for example, Multnomah County. Okay. Shouldn't be a shock for you that Milwaukee and by extension Clackamas County is pretty white. However, we're becoming less white, okay? If you compare the 2020 and the 2010 census data, basically the number of minorities, quote unquote, in Milwaukee have doubled during that time period, which is another thing to keep in mind when I talk about some other statistics, okay? But we continue to be about 88%. Now, however, again, this tab is really confusing, okay? If you add up all these, so people identify that as Hispanic, right? This is just kind of due to the idiosyncrasies of how the census categories fall now. We have almost 10% of our population now is considered of Hispanic origin. So Hispanic now falls under, those who, identify as white Hispanic, those who might come from, who are Spanish speaking, but coming from potentially the, Caribbean Isles or somewhere with darker skin, etc. Census gives you more choices now as to what your ethnic identity is. But that has doubled since 2010. So the number of people identifying as Hispanic in 2010 was about 4.8%. We're now closing in on 10%, and I suspect that since the 2020 census, we've now passed the 10% threshold. What are our age demographics? I like this one. I like these kind of bell charts. So male to female, we're equal-ish, okay? But when you look at age demographics, and again, the number, the way it's laid out, so this is age 50, so this is, somewhere close to 100, and this is younger, right? We're fat in the middle, right? So we have relative, if you looked at, for example, Portland, right? You're going to have more of a skew towards this end. We have a pretty significant bump. Now notice these two numbers, right? These two numbers. So this is 60s and 70s ish, right? This is Milwaukee Lutheran. But notice if you get down further, let me scroll down a little bit. We've got another bump, and this is 20s and 30s. Okay, and so an interesting question is, who are these folks? Right? Are these people that have moved into the area recently because of the disappearing demographic up top who moved into retirement homes, et cetera, right? Potentially, yes, it's something to think about. Is that I would argue that we've got a growing demographic of 20 and 30-year-olds that are living in the Milwaukee area. I think another piece of it is people who have been pushed out of Southeast Portland due to rent affordability, which is something that we'll talk about as well, too. Let's go down. And if you want me to pause at any of these and talk about them, just shout. Just stop me. Okay, now this is the one where it starts to get interesting with regards to housing affordability. And this is one of the things that we're going to be talking about this week and next week and weeks to come, because this is a question that we should be asking in terms of where does the need exist in our community? And by extension, has anybody looked at the Milwaukee Comprehensive Plan for housing affordability for the next 10 years? Has anybody heard anything about this? Okay. I'll show you a website in a little bit. But I highly encourage you to check it out, because now you'll understand why people are griping or people are excited or whatnot. So when we look at this, this is renting versus owning. Owning is the purple, renting is the green, okay? Top line, married, okay? So we don't have a ton, so I'd say that's about maybe 20% that are renting who are married. And then male and female, this is again, I don't know why they said it this way. Here's male, here's female.
But you don't know if those are those single people owning and renting? You don't know.
No. Because again, when you fill out censuses, right, it's as an individual. So, but this number will come back in a bit in terms of poverty as well too, housing affordability. But these are the people that I would argue are buying homes in Milwaukee because double income, right? And this is the Tri-County region in general. Now you all, well, I don't want to assume, but most of the folks in this congregation either bought or built homes prior to 20 years ago, right? Is that a safe assumption to make? And I know many folks who, this has been a decision that a lot of our people have been making over the last 10 years that I've been here is, do I stay in my home that I've had since who knows when, right? Or do I go to the Springs or Willamette View or Rose Villa, right? And it's been a great time to move to the Springs or Willamette View or Rose Villa for most of our folks because the price of housing has gone up significantly since 2008, right? 2008 was not a good time to move. Okay, a lot of our folks have been moving recently because they've been able to sell the home that they built or bought for a fraction of the cost 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. But who is able to afford to buy a home in Milwaukee, right? It's not single white pastors. Because if I were reliant on my own income, I would not be living in Milwaukee, right? For example, I know that my colleagues all live further south in Clackamas County, right? Not naming, I don't want to give away any personal information, but my single colleagues live as far south as they can get because that's where they can actually afford something. So who's buying homes here? It's 20, 30-year-old, probably more like 30-year-olds, married, double income, right? Now, of course, this married thing is not necessarily a category that is going to be consistent going forward because a lot more couples are identifying as partnered, not necessarily married, but you get the idea. Any questions on this stuff so far?
So what are those,
Yeah, so the top line is married.
right,
Second line down is male.
and what's the third one?
All. That is the ratio of owner to renter in Milwaukee.
The whole city.
Yeah, the whole city.
Which is almost exactly the same as in the others.
Yes. Very, very, very interesting there. And the next one down is non-family. So that's the could be a multiple family household. That could be friends living together. That could be people who are not married but partnered and don't want to set their status as married. That category is less helpful.
So owner with roommates.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, it skews more towards renters than owners. And then the bottom line is females, single females. And well, we'll get to that. Okay, I'm going to move on. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Not going to spend too much time on here, but here's our households. So these are the categories that we saw above. Okay, so households by type. Non-family, purple. Married, blue. Male, red. Female, green. Okay.
What's the green one?
Female. So single female households, single male households. Okay. And here is where we start getting into economics and education. So here is our educational demographic, or our educational demographics by gender, right? Which again, it might, going forward in the census, we might not go this way anymore, but this is how it is now. So at the bottom, we've got less than 9th grade, 9th to 12th grade, high school graduate, some college, associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and graduate degree. Okay.
And you said it's by gender?
So blue is male, pink is female, but it's again, these are the ratios of people living in Milwaukee, right? So by and large, the major demographic is people with some college, which kind of rings true considering the demographics of who our homeowners are, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. However, notice that the second largest demographic, arguably, well, maybe third, is people with high school degree, meaning, well, I don't want to assume too much, but most likely we're talking trade degrees, quote unquote blue collar folks.
But there's no graph for those who have gone to trade school?
No.
Okay.
No. And then we have a sizable portion of folks with a bachelor's degree and even some graduate degrees. I like that there's more women with graduate degrees. Yeah.
That's just getting larger.
And that is a gap that we're going to continue to see grow. Yep.
But it's also interesting on the very low end, that there are more women that only got to 9th grade than there are men.
You just want him to scroll down.
Yeah, could you just go back to that?
She likes the colors.
That's okay.
No, on the very low end of that one, is that the finished 9th grade one? Is that it?
No, the low end is less than 9th grade.
So there are more women on that than men.
Yes. Yeah. And then the second one is 9th to 12th grade.
And then it evens out for a while, and then it just.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well,
I was just thinking, I wonder if that has something to do, aligned with immigrant populations.
that's a question I wonder about as well too.
Exactly.
I wonder the same thing. Is as we're talking about, immigrant populations in Milwaukee, documented, undocumented, et cetera, how is that comprising those demographics?
In Oregon City, there's some
Colors of
colors
Christ.
of Christ where the young women all drop out of school right about.
Well,
But we don't
Not so much, yeah. And we'll look at some Milwaukee neighborhood maps in a second too. And then this is just that's the same information without the gender delineation. So it's people over 25. Again, if only I could get a little bit more fidelity on the projector. But so blue, less than 9th grade. Green, 9th to 12th grade. Dark purple, high school graduate, so about 20, 21, 22%. Some college, orange, so 28%. Associate's degree, red, 8.3%. Bachelor's degree, pink, 23%, and then finally graduate degree, 13%, which confirms what we were looking at. Okay, now here is where we start talking about ethnicity in education. So this is Milwaukee educational attainment based on race, and notice there's a percentage and a count, which the percentage is more important or interesting. Okay, so high school degrees is red. So all these red bars shows the percentage of people that have a high school degree. Pacific Islander is the first category. Almost 100% of our Pacific Islander population, because it's not very large, has
What's the green?
Green is a bachelor's degree or above.
So the first set of bars are Pacific Islanders.
Yeah, so first set of bars is Pacific Islander. Second one is 2 races. Third one is black. Fourth is white, which I find curious that the ratio between black and white folks here. Fifth is Asian, higher degree of degrees. Hispanic, right here. Native American, and then other race. And then just to kind of show you, how, difference between percentages and count, right? You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, so this isn't a super helpful statistic, primarily because our sample size isn't large enough for anybody besides white. But it's an interesting thing. Okay, moving on. I suppose I could skip some of these, but I think if I didn't do pastor stuff, I'd go into data analysis because I get such a kick out of this stuff. Those are the numbers.
You can do futurist pastor stuff.
I know, right?
Have fun.
I griped about that software that we were subjected to in seminary. I'll find, my brother's a software engineer. I've got a startup company. Do I want to look at this? Oh, no, this is, okay, here we go. And here's another really relevant. This is less to do acutely with Milwaukee, but this is just kind of talking about demographics in general. So this is earnings based on degrees received, okay? So the top bar up here, these are averages, so that's 80,000. 20,000 is the first increment, so it goes in evens, 20, 40, 60, 80, okay? Now, talking about the glass ceiling, right? Graduate degrees. Look at the disparity between male and female with graduate degrees. And the disparity in bachelor's degree. And the disparity in some college. And every category in Milwaukee, on average, women are getting paid less than men are. Okay? So, it's 2022, folks, and we aren't nearly there yet. But the other thing to pay attention to, the left category, the black one, is all male is blue, female is pink. But then the other kind of statistic to pay attention to is notice the declining graduate degree, bachelor's degree, some college, high school graduate, less than 9th grade, right? Not totally shocking. The thing that I find interesting, though, is that, and I think this is pointing to our blue-collar, trade school, is that men with a high school degree are, on average, making more than those with some college. Yeah. This is overall. That's the average. Yeah.
So that has to do with if you're a plumber, electrician.
And especially right now, I want to see the statistics for 2022, right? So this census data, when was the census collected in 2020? It was during pandemic because it was very early. Yeah, it was in March. It would have been. I want to see the data right now because trade schools are booming. currently.
And it's important to say that, you know, the first time in history, you can get out of high school and drive a truck for $100,000.
Totally.
For how long?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's a physically demanding job, and we'll see what happens going forward.
I mean, if you're 18 and you're going to be, you know, you're still in the seat at 58.
Yeah.
And you can also see those that go into professional basketball or baseball or football, they make a lot for a short time, and then they go bankrupt.
Okay, here's another super interesting statistic. So this is language. Okay. So this is all ages.
And this is first language you're talking about.
This is first language. This is primary language. No. No. Okay, sorry. Right here. 92% of Milwaukee residents speak only English. So this is speak, you know, up to, you know, 2 languages. Well, 7.8% speak other language. The non-English language spoken by the largest group which is Spanish, which is spoken by 3.64% of the population. Here's the thing that I find interesting. 65 plus. Okay? Not a huge shock there, but look at how much Spanish is spoken by our 65 plus. It's the red, okay? We've actually got a pretty large Asian Pacific Islander portion relative to this. And then green is other Indo-European, okay? Now we bump down to 18 to 64. Spanish spoken.
But it's still not the same percentage of Spanish speakers as there are Spanish or Hispanic people in Milwaukee.
No. So it's altogether it's 7.79%, yeah. Because I think this is what's your primary first language. It's not whether you speak Spanish or not. It's what is your language of origin. So what this is showing us is that somewhere in that 18 to 64 demographic, probably relatively recent immigrants, you've got Spanish. But then, you know, what happens when their kids go to school? 5.6%. Yeah. Let's go down further. And then finally we come to brass tacks, so to speak. So this is poverty by race. So this, having a longer bar is bad in this. So this is poverty rate. So this defines those who fall, the percentage of the population that falls below the established poverty line. Okay.
Which is what? For single and then
I'll Google it in a second. That's but it depends on the local, it depends on local cost of living.
So this is poverty by percentage of race.
Yep.
So therefore, since it's 94% or whatever white, 80% white, theoretically you have more white people in that because
theoretically, yeah. Again, because we've got such small percentages of like Pacific Islander and black, it's not a great sample size for data and statistics. However, highest category of poverty in the Milwaukee area is black, at 16%. White, you know, Andy, like you're saying, at 12% is the next one. Those who have multiple ethnic identities at it looks like 10.6%. Hispanic at 9%. Islander closing in around 8%, and then other, whatever that means. And here you can see the numbers. Right.
There's no graph that shows like what percentage of Hispanic families live in poverty or what percentage of.
No, that's what this is showing.
That's what that-
Yeah. So according to this, about 8.5, sorry. No, 9.52. Oh yeah, I was looking at the wrong part. Yeah, 9.52%. So those are the numbers right there. White, 11.9, 9.52 Hispanic, multiple 10.78, black 16.27, other and Islander. And then correlating these things to education, who falls below the poverty line, less than 9th grade, 23% of the population. High school degree, 19% of the population. If you have some college or a bachelor's degree or higher, the number drops to 8 and 6% respectively. Okay. So again, the difference here is pretty significant, right? This is the reality of the 21st century. So despite the fact that we have people in that quote unquote blue collar category that are making incomes that are on par with somebody with a bachelor's degree, right? The overall rate of people in poverty is significantly higher if you do not have a college degree, right? Which this is an interesting thing to think about, right? And I'm sure there are people actively doing studies on this. Does it mean that if you don't have a college degree, that there are simply less jobs available? Is that an issue? Or perhaps this is reflective of people who have a high school degree but didn't go on to get a trade school training, because that doesn't show up in these statistics. Could be, right? Could be.
But the other data said that people with high school actually did pretty well.
Yes. If you have a job, yeah, and I'm guessing that's what this is showing is unemployment rates, if you have a job, on average, it pays as good as somebody in college. And it could be that we're looking at an inverse bell curve as well too, right? Where, again, if you're driving truck, if you've got trade school training, you're making something on par with somebody with a bachelor's. But if you've got a high school degree and you're working at Subway, right, that, essentially we're looking at something like this.
Is there anything that compares something with your mental?
Yeah.
Because that would be for poverty.
It wouldn't show up on the census. It wouldn't show up on census data. But I wonder if somebody's tracking. I mean, the problem is like mental health statistics in general are HIPAA. They're not publishing that information, right?
But I would think theoretically should be a top.
Yeah. Yeah. You might wonder. Yeah. Interpret the data as you feel. Unemployment by gender, poverty race by employment status and gender. Okay, so the top two bars are men. So male employed, the poverty rate's only about 5%. Male unemployed, the poverty rate's only about 6.2%. Interesting. Yeah, and it could be retired folks. Female employed, the poverty rate jumps up to 7%. Female unemployed, the poverty rate is almost 18%, 17.41.
Because they probably have the kids in their house.
Yep.
Yeah, and feed them.
Yep.
Right.
Okay, and then finally, here is the income distribution for Milwaukee. Okay, so this is households black, so this is like the all category. Families in blue, which I'm guessing that that is people who identify as married. It might be single parents with children. It might be people living together but not identifying as married. And then married families in pink. And then really inconveniently, it's the same pink but a little bit darker is non-families.
So that one on the right.
So the one on the right is non-families, okay? But so this is the percentage of people that are making amounts of money. So on the left, under $10,000, so shocker, non-families, so individuals, okay? 10 to 15,000, almost the same exact data distribution there. 15 to 25, same distribution but higher, right? So on average, non-families. Same trend continues all the way up until you hit what we would identify as, blue collar middle class, right? Which is this one. And then it inverts. So 75 to 100K right here, you have families and married families being at the peak. 100K to 150K, same distribution. 150K to 200K, same distribution. Over 200,000, same distribution but flattened, right? So what this information tells us is that by and large, the people that are making money in Milwaukee are married couples owning homes that are white. Okay, that's what this tells us. Which means, if you then, if you do this via negativa, that means that if you are single, if you're a single parent, if you are non-white, you have a less likely chance to be making middle class or above, right? Which, again, is probably not shocking because this is our national statistic as well. But I think it's important for us to realize Milwaukee is no different, right? We are not some haven of lack of poverty. Poverty absolutely exists in our neighborhoods. It just doesn't tend to exist for us, right? For the folks who stereotypically have made up Milwaukee Lutheran Church, which tends to be married or potentially widowed or divorced, but married families that are white. This is where I would argue this is where we fall historically. Okay, it doesn't mean that we haven't been represented up and down the scale. I'm just saying when we think about what our perspective is, it's coming from this perspective, which means that as we wonder, right, who makes up our neighborhoods, here are the voices that we're not hearing. It's this demographic. Okay? This is why Stephanie's going to be presenting next week and the following week. This is that same data that's then compiled. So it's for those of you who are statistics nerds, it's the median and the mean. So the mean is the average. The median is if you take the data distribution, it's the point that falls in the middle, if that makes sense. So median household income, right? So this is the average. Median household income is not quite $80,000 for families, around $60,000 for households. That's the median. Or no, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. That's just there's no household or family. Households, average close to 80, median. So in the terms of the data distribution, close to 60. Families, again, higher than the average by and large. Married families, I don't know why we don't have mean data here, but again, I would argue that's probably even higher. And then, of course, non-families, so single folks, etc., is lower. I don't want to spend too much time on marital status. Does anybody want to look at marital status of Milwaukee?
Just tell us what that means real quick.
Okay, yeah. So the overall rate of people in Milwaukee who are married is 43.6%. And males are married 44.2% of the time. Females are married 42.9% of the time. In terms of statistical, it's a very small difference, but interesting, right? Is that potentially we have some single moms in our communities. And then this is that same information, but by age. 20 to 34-year-olds aren't getting married as often, believe it or not, which I would argue is less about social change and more about economic change. I didn't get married until I was 30. How old am I? I was married in 2019. So that was 3 years ago. I was 37. I'm turning 40 soon, but not yet. No. 37 or 30. I don't know. It's too.
So you're telling us you waited until you were wealthy enough to marry?
Exactly. I waited until I married a woman who was wealthy enough to get married. There's a strategy involved here, Paul. But yeah, our young folks aren't getting married, and shocker, our young folks then aren't buying homes. I would argue that when we looked at that home buying demographic, that it's mostly folks in this age range.
Explain the latter two.
Over 60. So this is 55 to 64, and this is over 65. I'm guessing that's widowed and widowers. Female and male, because women live longer than men.
So therefore, the fewer men, but they're married.
Yes,
Got it.
exactly.
Which is, the old status.
Yeah, that's
Longer if they're married.
yeah.
And somebody taking care of it.
Yep. I don't know. I'm going to come back to that one just because it's an interesting statistic. But okay, this is the one I was looking for. So this is labor force participation according to age. So this is who is working in Milwaukee. Kind of a stereotypical curve here that you would see with our young folks are working more than our old folks are. Shocker, not many of our 75 plus are still employed. Y'all mostly do. Yeah. So it's 25 to 29, 25 to 29, 30 to 44, 45 to 54. Oh no, wait, they flipped it. Sorry. I hate it when they do this. 25 to 29, 35 to 44 is the next largest. 30 to 34, for whatever reason, is the fourth line down. 45 to 54 is the third line down. So let me just give you the statistics because this is the way they set up this graph is stupid. So 20 to 24 is only 74% employment rate. The highest employed demographic in the Milwaukee area is the 25 to 29, 35 to 44 category. Okay, for whatever reason, there's the people that are between 30 and 34 aren't as highly employed as our, I don't know, it's a bad college year, I guess.
I'm wondering again if you're thinking of women who are home.
Yeah. Yeah. It's only about, well, not only, it's about a 10% difference between 25 to 29-year-olds and 30 to 34-year-olds, which is statistically interesting, right? Okay, hold on.
And this is all pre-pandemic.
This is all pre-pandemic, yeah. Here's employment rate, and it skews the exact same way. It's the same exact stuff. There's the unemployment rate. This is more helpful. No, it's not. They stuck with the same exact age distributions. I don't know why. 75 plus, right? So you all, yeah. So 65 to 74. Okay, I'll point them out here. 75 plus, 65 to 74, 15 to 19-year-olds, believe it or not, pretty high unemployment rate because of child labor laws. But 60 to 64-year-olds are still working. Okay. 20 to 24-year-olds have about a, what is that? 7% 6% unemployment rate. 55 to 59-year-olds have the statistically reasonably second highest unemployment rate at about 7%. And then 25 to 29 and 30 to 34 are the two bottom ones, and then 35 to 44. Yes. The highest unemployment rate, if you take out retired folks and children, is 55 to 59.
Yeah, which explains the trend.
Yeah. Okay.
So in 2020, Oregon, to be considered in poverty, 26,200 per family of four, 12,760 per individual.
Holy
That's for the whole
geez.
state. I can't find Clackamas.
And here's the number that we will talk about eventually is median rent for Milwaukee right now is about $1,200. Yeah, for San Francisco. Do the math though. That's median rent for a single bedroom apartment, right? If you want 2 bedrooms, it jumps up to like $1,700. It's more than 50% of your income. Yes. So this is simple math to do, right? If rent is $1,200 a month, and you as a single person are making, what was it, 12,000?
12,760.
It costs you more to live than you can possibly make.
Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're not considered poor.
So if you make $100 more than that, you're not below the poverty line.
And then also you don't qualify for all sorts of things.
Yep. Exactly.
Yeah.
And imagine a couple who's making, what was it, 26,000 or 22?
26,200.
Yeah. You're still not able to afford rent. Because that, I mean, so this is how we define, by the way, housing insecurity. That's not the word I'm looking for. Yeah, housing insecurity basically is if a neighborhood has 30% or more of the population that makes that rent is, no, I reversed my numbers. It's the percentage of the population for whom housing costs make up more than 30% of your income, right? And I took too much time in this stuff, but I'm going to pop over to another thing real quick. And I wanted to show you the veteran stuff just because this is interesting. So here's our veterans in that live in Milwaukee. Total number of 13,005. Vietnam vets make up almost half. Yeah, Second Gulf War is blue. Korea, purple. First Gulf War, 70.1%. And I bet this number is a whole lot smaller in 2022 than it was in 2020. That's World War II vets. Okay, hold on. I'm going to swap over to something else. How do I go back to Nope, I want DroidCam. There we go. Sorry, you're seeing a bunch of weird stuff up here because this is what's currently running the stream. But I want to hop to, no. This is where we get into the brass tacks talking about these specific numbers.
Jesse, I just want to.
Yeah, go, Paul.
We're all just sitting here going, this doesn't make any sense that you have stats that don't reflect reality. The poverty rate obviously is much higher.
Yeah. If you were to define it as whether or not you're able to.
That's silly.
Yeah. Because so if you were to, okay, I need to pull up a different tab. So if you were to look at percentage of the population in Milwaukee that is rent burdened, that's the word I was looking for.
I call rent insecure.
Yeah.
They're paying more than 50% of their income.
I forgot to bring this tab up.
Your recipe looks good.
My recipe?
You were showing the recipe.
Oh, I missed it.
Yeah, it's the best that you can get. Oh, right. Yeah, I think of all the folks who are houseless for any number of reasons. In my experience, mostly being drug and mental health issues. But the folks who are, what I just think of as insecure day by day and stressed by that insecurity is huge. You know, it's a huge number. We're not really focusing. Do they give data like supported families? Or do they give some kind of governmental support structure?
I'm sure that exists. I'm sure that exists, but I don't have that data offhand.
I just want to say that history of how poverty is indicated with regard to statistics and methods is complicated and fascinating and incredibly dated. So it doesn't almost mean anything.
That's what I'm saying. It's absurd.
Yes. And that does all sorts of things like measuring whether you can get a lifeline or not. There are people with that are homeless and have medical costs and disability and whatnot. They're making well over $12,000.
Right.
And they can't, and they have zero money.
Right.
Oh, there it is. There it is. Nope, that's not it. Boy, I had this pulled up last night, and now I can't find this stupid thing. So the map I'm trying to show you is the ArcGIS map for Milwaukee, but it shows the, no, I don't want to go to YouTube. What is this? How did that come up? I'm typing too fast. It shows rent burdened according to neighborhood in Milwaukee, which is the thing I really wanted to look at because that's the most important thing. Aha. I need to talk to Scott. City of Milwaukee's website is stupid.
Yeah, probably.
Okay. It's 11:15. We're only going to take a couple minutes for this. We'll look more at this next week, though.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Okay. Here's Milwaukee in general. Here's us, right? Lake Road neighborhood. This is, so anybody know anything about zoning designations? Okay. R5 through R10 is essentially single family residential housing.
So that's the blues.
Yeah, that's the blues. That's where we are. Right. So we have what is called a special use. What's the zoning? Special use permit or special use something or other. Yeah. So we're zoned as a variance within the city of Milwaukee, which we ran into when we had to build the sign and do all kinds of other crazy stuff. The orange are the areas that are zoned city center, industrial. And then what's the definition?
Multifamily?
Yeah, multifamily. So R1 through R3, right? So no shocker, downtown, right? If you go up 91, that's the corner where you get up closer to Holgate and areas. So this is all industrial as you get further north up here, right? That makes sense. But I want to show you this just so you have an understanding of the overlay of what Milwaukee looks like. Now here's where it starts to get interesting. Okay, here is renter or owner occupied housing, and this is shown as a percent of yes. So the darker the color, the more owners. The lighter the color, more renters. Okay, so again, Lake Road, no huge surprise here. This is primarily owner-occupied housing. As you move closer to downtown, you actually get a higher rental percentage, which I guess isn't shocking either as you get closer to downtown. But this right here is the area that I want us to think about and pay attention to as well, too. Because when we look at the rent burden neighborhoods, guess what? It's the neighborhoods that have higher renter occupied versus higher owner occupied, which is not a good sign, right? Because, for important reasons. We'll get there in a little bit. But does this map make sense by and large?
Can you point where Milwaukee High School is on it, just so that gives me a better rough.
Okay, Milwaukee High is right here.
Right there.
Yeah, we're right here. Yep, this is Robb Middle School right here, so we're right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what's the percentage difference?
Yep. So purple and dark. No, sorry. I need to talk to these people about their graph strategies because this is just silly. All you need to do is use solid colors. You don't need the shading stuff. So actually, I was going the opposite direction. So darker red is more renter. Darker purple is more owner. This is about 50%. Okay, so renters, owners, halfway in between.
Well, you got us south of 224.
Yeah, that's what I want to point out. So, here's 224 right here, and 224, well, 224 and then Clapton. Okay.
When 224 came in, if that changed the colors.
No.
That was back in the industrial. It was a truck garden in that area.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Hence all the car dealerships and stuff. Huh. That's interesting.
All the way to Clackamas, the old Clackamas High School in downtown Milwaukee.
But the real line of demarcation is the railroad.
Right.
Literally, if you live on the other side of the tracks.
But I think there's a lot of houses there too. It's not just apartment complexes, so there's a lot of houses that are
Well, that would be the
Yes.
issue. Is this done by individual locations or people that rent? Because we do have high density houses with
Yes.
people versus smaller homes with more land. So if
Yes.
it's people and not anything else, it's hard to really get a flavor.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it is hard, yeah, taking that stuff into consideration. Here's median rent, and then this one makes a little bit more sense because they changed the way the colors work. So the darker the color, the higher the rent, the lighter the color, the lower the rent. So darker color is greater than 1,300, lighter color is less than 680, okay?
Less than 680.
Yeah, and right in the middle, these guys are 1,000. Okay, this is median rent, not mean rent. Median rent. Okay. So obviously our neighborhood is on the pricier end. That's that's Linwood. So St. Paul UMC is right here, and if you've been up in that area, 82nd right here. Okay, finally, I'm sorry, I'm running late. Rent burdened households. So citywide, 32% of all homeowners are moderately housing cost burdened. In other words, having a hard time paying your mortgage. 51% of all renters are moderately rent burdened. Okay, meaning that they're spending more than 30% of their income. Half of renters are moderately rent, meaning they're spending more than 30% of their income.
And this is the 20 data? 2020?
This is 2020 data. Okay. Here, the green dots are overlays on the previous map, showing where our rent burden neighbors are. Not shocking, right? So if we go back to, here's where our renters are versus homeowners. So renters. And then if we look at what the median rents are, right? Okay. Here's our low income. Here's our low cost housing. Here is right next door, higher income. Here's our low cost area. Look where all the dots are. Okay, same area. And then finally, severely rent burdens. 27% of all Milwaukee households are severely housing cost burdened. So over a quarter of our city is paying more than 50% of their annual income on rent or housing costs alone. Okay? And same thing, darker equals more. Look at the clustering here. So this is the hospital, right? This is where Hilltop housing complex is going in. Right? So this is the information that the city of Milwaukee is looking at in their housing affordability and strategic plan for the next 10 years. Is that this is 2020. If we looked at this data in 2022, this is gonna be black here, right? And these circles are gonna be significantly bigger, right? This is optimistic, right? 2022, that's terrifying, right? If this is the state of things before the pandemic hit, imagine what it looks like right now.
But if let's say the goal is to get more low-income housing.
Yeah.
That's fine. It'll actually make that worse.
Depends, right? This is.
Right. It will, because you're going to be moving people in.
If the map.
Right, your map
Yeah.
is going to look worse. If you are low-income housing, but that means you're going to get people in that will still be low income, which means the burden's going to be still high.
So
But at least you're providing housing.
Yeah, well, and here's what a strategic plan seeks to tackle, right? Is this would launch into a whole other. We'll talk about this next week because I love talking about this stuff. This is one of the things that we as a society are talking about. Is the strategy for the last 100 years, right? Has essentially been ghettoization. Well, I shouldn't use that word, but it's been. If there's a low-income area, you build huge low-income housing in that area. And it's seeking to address this exact problem. Okay. Problem is you're clustering poverty. Nobody's going to invest in those neighborhoods, right? And then you've got all the things that go along with it. Food desert, right? What happened to the grocery store that used to be there? Ain't there anymore, right? I mean, the Freddy's is up here, right? That's still around. Yeah, Freddy's and Safeway. But what about is there stuff that's moderately in walking distance? I don't know. Yeah, so you got food deserts, you've got all these other issues that pop up. So kind of what people are talking about going forward is perhaps it's not a bad idea to build affordable housing. In other words, 30% of AMI, 50% of AMI in places where we're living, right? Where there aren't existing renters, right? Now, here's where it causes conflict then, is notice the neighborhood that we live in, okay? Very low rental percentage. Almost none of our folks, I mean, we got a little blip here, and this isn't indicating necessarily a geographic area. It's for this neighborhood. This is the number of people that are severely rent burdened. I don't know why they put it in that exact spot there. I think it's because it's the center of the Lake Road neighborhood, right? We almost have no one that is severely cost burdened. If we go back to moderately, that circle gets a little bit bigger, a little bit darker, not much bigger. Okay. We've been insulated from this stuff for the most part, right? If we cross 224 on the railroad tracks, right? These are the kids that are going to our middle school, right? These are the kids that are going to Milwaukie High, they're going to Lot Whitcomb, that are going to El Puente and Milwaukie Elementary, right? So, you know, spoiler alert, the question I want us to ask ourselves is this our community, right? Do these people belong to our church? Right? And obviously that's a leading question.
Well, and also, I mean, we're not even looking at South Oak Road there, along with Laughlin, you know, you have a huge,
Yes.
a huge concentration of single family.
Oh my gosh.
Renters homes.
If you go south, and if you go east, right? Then, I mean, so Creator Lutheran, you know, out here. Well, King of Kings is down there. Yeah, if we start talking about our cluster community as well, yeah, you want to talk. I have such a hard time looking at that. Okay, here's Sunnyside. Here's Mount Albert. Happy Valley. Yeah, so if you go out east, well, it's actually more up north here, where you're running into
Well, the flats.
the flats. Yeah. All right. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of information to think about. Okay, so for next week, Stephanie is penciled in for next Sunday to talk. It really has to depend on what's happening with her grandma this week. Worst case scenario is worst case, she may end up teaching the last two Sundays, or maybe just one of the last two. She might end up teaching next Sunday. I'll know by Wednesday, hopefully, whether she's going to be available on Sunday. If Stephanie can't be here next Sunday, we're gonna look at this stuff a little bit more, and we're gonna talk about what it means for us. If she can be here, she's gonna talk about the people that she sees on a regular basis. And what I've asked her to do specifically is kind of like basically give you a rundown of what a Thursday evening looks like for her when she's running the shower cart. You know, who are the people that she's interacting with? Who are the people that she saw for the Jolly Jamboree program, right? Who was coming to our church, picking up Christmas boxes and gifts for their kids, right? What are their stories? You know, what's she hearing from those folks? So, all right, it's 12:30. I got to get rolling. Alen, God bless her. I should probably stop streaming before I start saying these things.